Adam, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you, Frida?
Oh, I'm okay. It's been one of those days, but I'm all right. I'll get there. I'll get there. I've got to say, congratulations on the film. I absolutely loved it. I've seen it twice.
Oh,
It's a
wow.
42 movie, most definitely. And congratulations on all the recognition as well. It does strike me, though, that with animation at the moment, we seem to be going through something of a golden age with all the current crop of films. Why do you think that is?
Oh, look, I think there's many reasons. I think that in one way, the audience is a bit tired of the usual formulaic, predictable Hollywood high-end CGI stuff, and there's been so much of that. I think we're drowning in it. And also, too, new technologies mean that young filmmakers, emerging filmmakers can make their feature films much more cheaply. It's much more accessible and therefore more egalitarian. But also, too, I think just now, I think stop motion's going through a little bit of a renaissance because of things like AI on the horizon. Well, it's here, isn't it? But also that there has been so much CGI that there's a greater appreciation of things that are handcrafted. For example, bookstores apparently are booming. DVD sales are up. LP records, of course, are popular. People are after things that are tangible, tactile, have a handmade quality to them because we all know robots will be making everything in 10 years' time. So I think there's a greater appreciation of things that are handcrafted.
And of course, your films are in stop motion, and that's something that we're very familiar with here in the UK because of Aardman, particularly, and Wallace and Gromit. But I think your films are, if you like, the other side of the coin, because with Wallace and Gromit, they're sort of smooth and lovable and all the rest of it. Yours are a little bit darker to the point of being grotesque,
Yeah, yeah.
they're sad, but they've also got heart and hope in there as well. Where does that style come from?
Well, look, I think it comes back to the fact that all my characters are based on my family and friends. Even though they're not documentaries, they are certainly based on truth and life experiences, not just my family and friends, but myself as well. So they have an authenticity to them. They're rough around the edges. They're imperfect. They're lumpy, and that's because I'm trying to reflect, the people around me, and we're all imperfect. We all have flaws. And it's just I choose to make my films in clay, and that's for a couple of reasons. I love the creative freedom and control you get as an animator. I could never work in live action with real actors. I mean, we have actors who loan us their voices, of course, but there's a lot of I think with the animation too, with adult animation, you can really heighten an emotion because we have that wonderful tool of exaggeration where we can stretch the characters' faces to make something even more poignant or more funny. And we get to play God as animation directors. And that's very alluring.
So it sounds like it very much reflects your personal vision of the world then.
Oh, for sure. I've always been fascinated by the human condition and just the life experiences of everyday people. My characters aren't heroic in the superhero sense. They're just people who struggle, who survive, who have their ups and downs. And that's what I'm trying to do with every film is get that duality, that balance between comedy and tragedy, light and dark, humor and pathos, and again reflect just the life I have. And I think that's why they connect. I mean, certainly try and make the films universal as well, and that the characters are sort of archetypal. Grace is sort of an archetypal underdog, and I think that's why they resonate in a lot of countries. And again, they're certainly not for children or not for little kids, but they're for teenagers up. And strangely, this film, out of all my films, has been working best with teenage young adult audiences.
There is this whole thing about animation not being for kids, and I think that this is actually a perfect example, as you've said. Have any directors influenced you in particular? Because I did see that you spent your birthday doing a Q&A with Guillermo del Toro, and you pardon me if I turn green.
Yeah, look, that was what was the best birthday present I could ever have. He sang happy birthday to me and brought out a cake in front of 400 people. So I was pinching myself. He's a great supporter, and of course, he's dabbled in stop motion himself with Pinocchio. Um, there's so many directors I admire, not so much for their work, but just for their philosophies on life. Of course, David Lynch passed away today, and he always loved exploring dark subject matter. But then I love English directors like Mike Leigh. One of my favourite films is Nuts in May. Then of course Ken Loach. Kess is one of my favourite films. Peter Greenaway, who you don't hear much about anymore, but I loved the work of Peter. The Cook, the Thief, his wife. That was one of my favourite films. Jean-Pierre Jeunet in France, I love his work. Delicatessen is one of my favourites. Lasse Hallström's My Life as a Dog. I mean, it changes. It really depends what mood I'm in. Like all of us, I go to films, rewatch films that bring me joy, but also films that I know are going to make me cry and let me be in my pity pit and wallow. But I also love literature. I read a lot. And do you know what? I don't actually watch many animated films. I much prefer to be. I love documentaries too. Errol Morris documentaries. You know.
That's interesting, actually, but it's probably no bad thing that you actually do take time away from what you do as your job.
I think too. I worry if I was watching a lot of animation, I'd subconsciously be stealing stuff, and so yeah, and also I just don't have time. My films are so time consuming to make and all encompassing. But yeah, I think reading's probably my main joy and outlet and form of inspiration.
You talked about the personal element of your films, and I believe the initial idea for Memoir of a Snail partly came from after the death of your father when you were having to sort out all his stuff with the rest of your family as well, and there was quite a lot of it. It made me wonder actually how he'd feel about perhaps being the inspiration for what's turned out to be such an acclaimed film. I mean, do you think he'd have given you a big hug or actually told you off?
I think he probably wouldn't know what all the fuss is about. I mean, he was very, I don't think he even was aware of how much stuff he had collected and how many garages and sheds he'd filled to the brim. I mean, he wasn't a hoarder in the stricter sense, in that it wasn't destructive to his life. He was quite a well functioning human being, but he certainly didn't know how to throw things out, and that's what led to the fascination with collecting. After he died, I started to read a lot of books on extreme hoarding and the reasons why we fill our homes full of things we don't want. And what I came across and was struck by was how common it was for extreme hoarders to have lost a child, a sibling, or a twin, and that the hoarding is this sort of coping mechanism to deal with all that pain, and the hoard becomes like a buffer and shield from the outside world, which is why it's why I fell in love with snails, because I thought, well, they're the introverts of the animal world, and their shell is sort of like a buffer from the outside world. And that's how I got into all the snails and shells. And I also am a bit of a hoarder myself. I collect things I observe. I collect names, smells, colours, quotes. I'm always writing stuff down in my notebooks, and they become my ingredients for each film.
Now, every time I see pictures of you lately, particularly on Instagram, you've always got a model of Grace with you. What kind
Yeah.
of traveling companion is she?
Well, it started off as a bit of a joke. One of the publicists wanted me to bring her to a red carpet event and stick her on the red carpet, and I said, "Oh, I've never done that before with any of my films. The characters have always been thrown out by that stage or in a museum." So I did. I brought her along at, I think it was the Telluride Film Festival was the first, and she met Angelina Jolie, and we got a photo with Angelina, and few weeks ago, the Golden Globes, she met Harrison Ford, and we've got a photo with him. And so it's just been this sort of, and she's quite grubby now. She needs a good disinfectant, I'd say, because she's been handled by so many people. But yeah, I mean, the weird thing is she's got no legs, and no one ever really comments on where are her legs. But a lot of my characters don't have legs because animating walking is very tricky. So we do what's called the Muppet technique, where they walk on like this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So who gets all the attention? Is it her or you, or is she
Oh,
taking it
her, which
from
is
you?
great. I mean, it's a great icebreaker too if you want to meet someone. Like we met Bill Murray at something, and he loved looking at her, and he took a photo of her upside down, of course, being true Bill Murray fashion.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, she broke one of my rules though, which is I always believe that the characters should only exist in the film and they should never appear outside their own world. But I broke that rule, and too late now.
So, sometimes you have to be a little bit flexible.
Yeah, yeah.
We were talking earlier about the voice actors that you've had in your films, and I wondered how much you got involved in actually choosing them. Because I mean, in Mary and Max, you had Philip Seymour Hoffman, you had Toni Collette, Barry Humphries, and in Memoir of a Snail, you've got Sarah Snook, Jackie Weaver, and Nick Cave as well. Do you get involved in choosing them, or is that down to
Oh
somebody
yeah.
else entirely?
Oh no, it's absolutely 100% me and my producer, and we don't really use casting agents. We certainly have to talk to the actor's agent, but we never go casting. Um, oh, we did for the kids. We did use a casting agent for young Gilbert and Grace. But no, I just always have my wish list, and when I'm writing the script, I'll quite often go and listen to actors in their films with my eyes shut, listen to their voice, see if it's got something that's true about it, something that's authentic. And I always strive for actors to not have to put on voices. I always want the actors to just use their natural speaking voice because often there's a tendency for it to become cartoonish. So with Sarah, I just wanted her to be very, quiet. She's quite a shy person. She lives, and all these actors, they all live where I live in Melbourne. Melbourne has a lot of actors who base themselves there and then go off and do films in Hollywood and over here in England. But yeah, I've been very lucky, and I think actors say yes to my films too because they know they're for adults. They're not going to trivialize their careers, or they give them a bit of cred. And also, too, actors don't have to, they have to do makeup or costumes. They can turn up in their leisure wear, and it's often quick too.
Yeah. Yeah, I've noticed also on the voice cast list for both of those films, is this guy called Adam Elliot.
Yes, I'm a bit of a Hitchcock and have to, put myself in there. Well,
That was the term I was going to use. Is this your Hitchcock cameo?
I like the thing is I'm a frustrated actor myself. I did want to be an actor at one point, and I love doing voices. But the main reason I do a lot of the supporting cast is for monetary reasons. I'm cheap. Well, I'm free, so we save a lot of money.
I love your honesty. I love your honesty on that. As you said, it takes years to put your films together. I mean, just looking at that opening sequence of the film with all those items, I mean, that in itself, I dread to think how long it took to make. But given that it takes so long, what's percolating in your mind now for your next project?
Sure. Well, I'm at the tail end of publicity. I've been doing almost a year now. But I've got an idea. I want to make a road film because I think I'm tired of making films about characters locked in their bedrooms in suburbia. I want to break free and take one of my protagonists on a very long journey. I think as I'm getting older, I'm becoming more existential and philosophical. So I want this film to be, I want it to be funny and sad like all my others, but I want it to have a sort of a more questioning sort of sense to it about the world, why are we here, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I haven't started writing yet, but it's all in my head at the moment.
Your world will be amazing to see. I have absolutely no doubt. Adam, it's been lovely to talk to you. And like I say, Congratulations on the film, because I do absolutely love it. I'm becoming a little bit of a bore on it amongst some
Oh
of my
no,
friends,
thank
if
you.
I'm honest. They keep telling me off.
Oh no,
But
look,
I love it, and I wish you continued success with it because it so deserves it.
thank you, Fred. And no, I thank you for your support because, as you know, being independent and being an auteur, we need all the support we can get.
You go for it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.